We have a content marketer, so it's a team of one. We have an installation person, team of one again, on a team of a few people in demand generation to help with some of the execution on the demand gen side. I also have a few product marketers on the side who are helping with, I would say, a lot of the customer marketing aspect.
Every B2B marketing team faces challenges when they have to do more with less. Should you build skills internally? Should you find a freelancer? Should you search for the right agency? This is Tech Qualified, a podcast for the scrappy B2B marketing teams. In each episode, Meredith Metsker, a senior content leader at a tech company, and Justin Brown, a marketing agency owner, uncover how marketing teams generate qualified opportunities with limited resources. Every episode helps you get one step closer to winning over your ideal customers.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Tech Qualified. I'm Justin Brown and I'm joined by my co-host Meredith Metsker.
Hey everyone.
This show is brought to you by New North. New North specializes in working with B2B marketers who have to do more with less. When you partner with New North, you turn your small, scrappy marketing team into a growth engine. I'm excited to talk to today's guest because I only play in complex technology. I constantly find myself creating things for clients in niche spaces like freight tech or waste management tech. And I understand the complexities of writing and creating content for niche and technical audiences across spaces like the ones I mentioned and health tech and fintech. So today we have Florian Delval on the show. Florian is a product marketer with technical background that started his career in software engineering. Florian currently works at ActionIQ, and today we're going to spend the day talking about how to create product marketing and technical content, whether you do or don't have a background in engineering. So, Florian, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Well, let's just start with what we were talking about in the green room. And I was like, let's just stop and hit record because this is interesting. So you said you had a product launch today. We had to settle into the green room for a second while he's like wiping literal sweat off his forehead. You said you had a product that needed to get launched in 8 days. What were you working on?
Yeah. It's been a fast track for sure. We've been working on analytics for a long time. So maybe taking a step back, the product of ActionIQ, maybe we'll go more into the details later on, but it's a product to help marketers use and access customer data for the purpose of their customer experiences. So driving personalization across different channels. So very relevant to marketers, even though we specialize into selling to enterprises, so larger, complex organizations, not just ourselves as small enterprise. We've been working on one piece you're certainly aware when you do marketing is you want to be able to measure, to do some analytics, to understand what you're doing. It's a piece that we had some capabilities around at ActionIQ for some time, but we understood that we need to go beyond what was in place. So we decided to be scrappy to some extent and be able to get that launch, that announcement of what we're doing, what we've done, what we're doing, and what we're planning over the course of the past 8 days.
Nice. So over the course of those 8 days, what did the project timeline look like?
Yeah, it looked like everything accelerated. Meaning that, the first thing you want to do is have a plan for sure. So you have a milestone. The milestone is a launch date, and you start from there and go backwards. They're always like nice to have on MVPs in any launch. I think due to the timeline here, there was no option in doing any extra in a sense. Like you need to get the minimum that will allow you to have a successful launch. And that, to me, always involves from the beginning, a strong communication internally, strong alignment internally. Really make sure that everybody's aware of what we're doing, why we're doing this, why we're doing this now, as well as what we're going to do. Like, what is our messaging, why, on how you should be talking about this. So the first steps were drafting all the answers to what I just talked about, as well as the initial messaging on getting internal alignment. Like, what are we going to talk? What are we going to name this? Mm-hmm. How are we going to message this? What does it mean? What can it do? What do we expect this to achieve? Who do we sell this to? And once we got the answers, getting alignment, getting sign off on keep moving.
And I'm curious, so what does your team consist of at ActionIQ on the marketing side?
Yeah, very different functions in a sense within the team. I'm on the product marketing side. I lead all the large go-to-market on launches. So me and my team are really specializing to some extent on product launches, market strategy, understanding what's going to happen in the market, competitive analysis on all of these aspects. To help support our initiative, we have a content marketer. So it's a team of one. We have an installation person, team of one again, on a team of a few people in demand generation to help with some of the execution on the demand gen side. I also have a few product marketers on the side who are helping with, I would say, a lot of the customer marketing aspect.
I'm curious, Meredith, how does product marketing work with you? So, and let me just preface this. So, I always find it interesting when companies do and don't invest more or less in product marketing versus other parts of marketing. So, it sounds like product marketing is pretty heavy at ActionIQ in comparison to the rest of the broader marketing team. Is it like that for you too, Meredith? Do you have a product marketing team? What does that look like?
Yeah, we used to have a product marketing manager, but we don't anymore. So we're back to just a VP of marketing and just me on content. So it's kind of going back to me absorbing some of the product marketing responsibilities, which so far has just kind of consisted of trying to prioritize creating new case studies because we haven't had a new one in a while. So I have so much respect for the product marketers that do these launches, especially in 8 days. It blows my mind. 'Cause, yeah, it's such niche, difficult work.
Yeah, it'll be good for this conversation to understand how each of you handle the product launches, manage just product marketing in different types of organizations and also different types of backgrounds. Florian, that was one thing that I wanted to start with you just to ask you about. So you have a background in software engineering and then moved to product marketing. Is that how it went? Do you mind talking a little bit about your background? Because I find it interesting in how you wound up in product marketing.
Yeah, totally. You're right. I definitely started as a software engineer. I love developing software, but very quickly in my career, I also knew that I would not just keep doing that. I wanted to get closer to the people using the software engineers are developing on to understand really how, why this is having an impact for people. So from software engineering, I moved into a technical architecture roles where I was deploying technology into organizations of various sizes, from small to larger global enterprises, mostly in North America, but also worked with clients in EMEA on APAC. And ultimately, I went a step further, moving into the business by joining ActionIQ on the product marketing side. But what really helped me is understand the entire chain, in a sense, from the development of a software all the way to putting that on the market, on talking about it to potential buyers.
And for someone who doesn't have that software engineering background, what do you see as ways that someone who isn't as technical can get involved in product marketing, can succeed in it, what have you?
Yeah, I think it often starts with interest, right? I worked with content marketers who don't have background in technical background. And it's never been a problem because, first of all, they bring a different angle. On what matters is asking questions. If you are interested, ask questions and try to get the story simplified for you to understand it. Quite often, even buyers, they don't have the time to go back to the nitty-gritty details of why your technology is better from a couple of lines of code, in a sense. So the most important is to be able to simplify stories. And for that, having interactions with technical people, even when you're not technical yourself, is helping fine-tune all these pieces that you need in marketing.
Yeah, I love hearing you talk about kind of the storytelling element of all of this. That appeals to me. And I'm like over here taking notes for some of the product marketing work I'll need to do here in the future. And kind of speaking on this content side, I was wondering if you could just kind of tell us a little bit more about the types of content you create at ActionIQ, particularly the most technically focused pieces. Like, what are you creating? How do you go about creating those and distributing those?
Yeah, totally. So as I mentioned, we have someone for content marketing too. On the way we differentiate a little bit the content creation approach is our content marketer will primarily focus on higher level type of content for awareness on some SEO content. But anytime we need deep for leadership around the market, around our specific piece of technology, that's where product marketers like myself on my team come in. We will still collaborate closely with our content marketing person to, again, improve the story, improve the outcome of the content, but we're the one coming in with the draft, the idea on the structure that we think we should take here.
Okay. Yeah, I love hearing how you all work together, especially kind of where you have that almost that divide in responsibilities, like who takes on what, because that's something I'm trying to figure out now that we don't have a product marketer anymore. It's like, okay, what counts more as content marketing, what counts more as product marketing, and how do you balance that? So I'm curious, how do you kind of distinguish between those two?
Yeah. It's a great question. We had some rotation over time of resources. Really what I like to do is I don't think there is, a golden rules that works everywhere. What I like to do is look into the skill sets that you have access to, on the people you have access to, or really leverage the best of us. I worked with content marketers who sometimes are great at creating stories, on creating analogies. Over time, they're better at just fine-tuning your content, on project managing with the rest of the teams. What I like to do is just take the best out of everybody. And where they have weaknesses is just look at where these weaknesses can be filled in with other teams. And as the resources shift, as the team grows or reduces in size, which happened in tech recently, you just reevaluate how you split, what works, what doesn't work along the way. Like as in any marketing activities, you want to always test, experiment, and reevaluate what you're doing.
Yeah, and how do you collaborate with the engineering team or the product team itself? What are you finding yourself doing? Is it testing things alongside them? Is it talking to them and picking their brain and conducting interviews and trying to get an understanding? Is it talking to customers and how they use the product? Like, how are you embedding yourself and collaborating with the people who are most involved with the product?
Yeah, all of this and more.
Yeah, I led you a little bit, I know. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious, and if there are any that you like more than others. So, like, to give an example, Meredith and I are both in content primarily. We both wear a lot of hats, but for us, we kind of have our playbooks, which are start with some form of show, an interview show with people in the space, and then we can pick their brains, use that as content to then put out into the world. So I'm curious for you in your role. I know I said a lot of things and you're probably like, yes, I do all of those. And I think Meredith and I both would be like, if you brought up content in a million different ways, we'd be like, yes, we do all of those, but we still have our like go-to moves or plays that work best for us to tell stories, to help to communicate in the ways that we want. So I'm curious from your perspective, what are the one or two or three things that you're like, look, anytime that I try and dive into something, this is where I start, or this is my like best approach to this, to marketing this product or what have you. So I'm just curious there, like, what is it that you like to do and focus on the most?
Yeah. So it's a slightly different angle on the question, but I guess what I like to do is, as a product marketer, I feel like it's almost our job to always know where the market is going to go, at least 12, if not 6 months ahead. Mm-hmm. So for that, what you need is keep an open eye, open ears on everything going on around you. So I sign up to newsletters. I try to go to conferences or to networking events. And I try to pick up signs of what could be coming our ways. What it means is anytime this happens, I can be as ready as I could be in a sense. On
Yeah, in the AI world, Florian, if you're able to predict what's going to happen in 12 months, you don't make nearly enough money. I'm sure you're trying, as we all are.
You're right, and at the same time, there are things you can predict.
Yeah.
You can predict that the way marketing works today is going to be disrupted. You cannot predict exactly how, but you can predict that it will be happening.
Yeah, I remember when we started years ago editing like in Descript, and like I just remember the first time like being able to edit video through a transcript and delete a word, and that word was deleted. And I didn't know how this was going to impact things, but I was like, this is going to have tremendous impact on the video editing industry as a whole. Where it goes, I'm not 100% sure, but things are going to change. And I would imagine the product marketing team at Adobe was like, the Florians at Adobe were like, oh no, this is really going to affect Premiere. So I can see that. Although we don't always know with AI what's going to happen, you can kind of see when something is going to have a big structural shift.
Yeah. The reason I looked into AI, like we're shifting topic again, but the reason I looked into AI very early on is everybody in the market, in the public, was looking into ChatGPT, right? And so what usually you see in consumer behavior reflects in the enterprise, in the B2B world, because we're all people at the end of the day. So if we're personally looking into ChatGPT, it means that at work, we're going to ask ourselves questions around this too. So that's what drove me very early on into questioning what does AI means for marketers and for organizations, even though in November 2022, it was very early. But on our side, I've started to look into AI on what we should be doing as early as January 23.
Okay. I love what you were saying earlier about, you're always trying to stay a few steps ahead, kind of predict what might change or how things might change. I'm curious, how do you go about keeping on top of those trends? Like, are you talking to your engineering and product teams? Are you reading outside resources? Can you just walk me through how you're sort of coming up with those predictions?
Yeah, there are definitely internal conversations, but there's also a lot of outside sources. I think that's the most important part, is to make sure that you have conversations with, a little bit like Justin said, with clients, with analysts, with partners, with brands that you would like to attract. What are they talking about? What are these brands' objectives? What are you seeing? As a piece of technology on our side, we integrate with other pieces of technologies. What are the trends around these pieces? What is happening in their world? Because what's happening in their world could impact our world. So it's a lot of things, and I won't lie, it takes time, but I'm making sure that I'm finding some time every day to at least scan through my newsletters. I'm signed up to far too many newsletters, and you can tell when one topic is important. It's across all of them. So in a sense, you have the quality of information, but you can also find information by the quantity. Even if you just scan something, if you've scanned it 10 times, it means that maybe it's important and you should double click on one of them to see what they have to say.
You're in one of my favorite types of spaces, and it's not because it's marketing, but where you have complex subject matter and an audience. Marketers are more, I think, a little more savvy than maybe some of the audiences that I work in. I use an example up front, like freight tech. I mean, we're talking about truck drivers, right? And like that has to be in the messaging. We have to make things in a way that truck drivers are going to want to interact with an application. That application could be very sophisticated or not as sophisticated or what have you. And not to take anything away from truck drivers, I'm sure many of them are very sophisticated, but we have to speak to an audience that's broad enough that everyone will understand. So how do you, as someone with an engineering background who is in a complex technology, but then has to relate what the product is to the audience, what types of exercises do you go through to distill that information that is complex in nature into a way that a more generalist audience in marketers, right? Where like I have clients that are selling to scientists and they can just talk as complex as they want because the end user of what they're doing is as complex or more, or more sophisticated than the person creating the software itself. So they understand it right away. But when you have to go the other direction, what are some of the things that you do to try and make sure that you appeal to the people that you're talking to?
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I find fascinating about being a product marketer in a very complex space is at the end of the day, I see product marketing as being pretty much a lot of enablement and education.
Mm-hmm.
It's education on both sides. First, I need to be educated myself because otherwise I can't educate others. So it's first be able for yourself to understand as much as you need to be dangerous in a sense. And not too far to some extent. Something I had to learn is I'm not a software engineer anymore. I need to only learn up to a certain extent, and then I should use that knowledge to do things and not just keep digging the rabbit hole. And the second part is back to once you understand, educate others. A lot of being able to sell is being able to explain what is happening on your product, the market, and everything. And to your point, there is even people who can go deep in the complexity. Every time you start higher level, right? The first time people started to look at ChatGPT on all these new words, in a sense, for most of us, you have to understand the terminology. You start hearing about LLMs, maybe vector databases, on a lot of terms you might not be familiar with. So the first step is, what are the terms that matter in that space? What do they mean? Can you educate around that? And then what starts 101 on as people get better understanding, you can start digging deeper and deeper. It's the same as if you think about a sales funnel on selling to someone. First, you want some level of awareness. And then as you continue the conversation, you can go deeper around what someone's interested in and wants to learn. So it's really about understanding who you're talking to, what depth to start based on their current maturity, because two personas might be at different maturity levels, on just constantly adjust your language.
I love it that you mentioned like figuring out the acronyms because it reminded me of a funny story when I first got into tech marketing. Someone threw out the acronym MVP, and I'm thinking, most valuable player? What? I don't understand. They're like, no, minimum viable product. Oh, okay. Had to learn that one on the fly. Like in a meeting, I was very confused.
Yeah, I think it's often we underestimate the complexity of the acronyms. It's a great one. I've been in organizations where the same acronym meant different things in different conversations, in different contexts.
Yes, oh my gosh, you need like a whole dictionary when you start a new job, especially if it's a totally different product and audience. Kind of on that note, again, I'm just like asking these questions for me, so this will help me in my work. But as a content marketer, I feel like I'm really good at understanding people, understanding the audience, and figuring out what kind of content appeals to them. But when it comes to product marketing, something I struggle with is getting to know the product at a deep enough level that I can teach others about it. So I'm kind of curious what your process is for, if you join a new company and a new product, how do you go about learning about that product fast enough and deep enough that you can start creating good content about it?
Yeah, I think it helps if you have an opportunity to join some enablement sessions, onboarding of new customers to use that product. So products can be different levels of complexity. If the product is a development product, or if we think about complex things like Snowflake, it might be complex as a content marketer. But I feel like most products, you still have a few places where without deep technical knowledge, you can play around. And that starts to give you a feel about what this product is. You can have conversations, obviously, with the product team. I think that helps. I wouldn't go as far as the engineering team. The one reason for that is, unfortunately, engineers are quite often too removed from their own world of developing the software, and they don't understand enough of the context, unfortunately, to be able to help you. That's actually something that we're trying even on our sites to improve, meaning we want our engineers to better understand what what the software they're developing is used for, in a sense, like getting out of their bubble, their own bubble. So I think that the deepest level certainly is going to be the product team. Not all product managers are able to simplify concepts for non-technical persons to help you. So when you don't have a product marketing person to be in the middle, it's certainly going to require a little more effort, but hopefully that conversation is putting in a good direction.
Nice. And Meredith, I thought of one for me that was like MVP. So I started my career in sales, and people would say you have to establish an MBA. I'm like, MBA? What are you talking about? Master mutually beneficial agreement. So I had one of those too.
Oh, yeah. I would have thought Masters in Business Administration.
No, mutually beneficial agreement. Florian, sorry, I just had one on my.
You want give you one? One I learned a few years back, and I stuck with me. I was one told like, oh, you're an ESL.
Okay, what is that?
English second language.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what I knew it as. What does ESL mean? Something different?
No, it's just I just
didn't know.
I had no idea about what it's doing.
Nice. Yeah. We had classes for ESL in my I live outside DC, so we have people of all sorts of mixing bowl here. So we had ESL classes. So that's how I knew that one. I don't know if many people would know that one. I had one more question on leveraging technical people in your marketing. What are some of your ways you do that? So Meredith, I have some ideas, and you probably have similar ones to what I have, which is that I lean towards interviews. I mean, you can be an internal interview that's never going to get published anywhere, but conducting interviews, whether it is with a product team, I'm just thinking about a client. They're in the printing space. They have had the same guy who does color printing for them for like 35 years, like their head of color printing. And we did an interview with him, and it was like the most insightful, amazing interview ever with someone who works, hands on the product for 35 years. Never would have thought that this guy in printing was going to bring the heat like he did, but it was awesome to talk to him. And so that's typically where I lean, being on the less technical side, is like the more people I can talk to, the more transcripts I can get, record it. You can even create like a specific GPT for all these interviews that you do that's distilling information. But like, what are some of your approaches for trying to leverage the expertise of the technical colleagues within your organization from like an actual doing standpoint? Like, what are the things you do, like aside from you talk to them, but like, is it formal meetings? Is it just, ad hoc? Is it recording and turning it into things? Like, what are you actually doing?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about interviews, so I'm definitely, maybe I suggest something else I've done that's pretty efficient, is especially in situations where it's difficult to understand the explanation of the other person. It's taking more of the action seats, meaning, why don't you try to write down what you understand? You don't understand everything, you're not fully clear, but write down what you understand on how you think you understand the structure of the information. And then have the conversation, ask like, is it right? Does it make sense? Do you agree with this? And you get feedback. What it means is the conversation is getting closer to where you want it to be, because that draft, that structure is maybe the piece of content you want to publish after.
Yeah.
And so in a sense, even if you know it's wrong, you're already getting somewhere that will get you to what you want.
Awesome. Well, I want to change the conversation a little bit. We have an audience of marketers. What does ActionIQ do? Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what you all are up to, and how you're trying to put your stamp on kind of the MarTech space?
Yeah, definitely. So marketers are certainly aware. One of the challenging things to do is access customer data. You want to reach your customers, you want to serve them personalized content, but you have one IT person or a set of data engineers who are sharing their customer data and not giving it to you. And if they do give it to you, they're like, here is the access to the database, like, go take what you need, on you need SQL knowledge. ActionIQ is helping making marketers having access to customer data without having to understand all the details of the technology, not having to query via SQL. What I find super fascinating with that, we chatted about AI for a little bit, is where things are going. Like if you think back, marketers 20 years ago, before marketing technology existed, the only way to get access to data was to ask a technical person to pull an audience for you, right? So in a sense, you write a ticket, a support ticket, whether you use Jira or another system. You get that audience back. It's great, but it's not efficient because it takes time. Marketing technology came around, and this is what most people use today, where marketers have the possibility to use friendlier drag and drop interface without having to write SQL to access audiences on data. This is what ActionIQ can help you with today. Talking about the trends on where we think things will go, is the challenge when you use that click drag and drop interface is you still need to understand the underlying data model to some extent. As a marketer, you need to understand what your IT name each column. Like, is it first name? Is it F name? Is it name? So you need some understanding of the technology on the data. With AI on all this natural language approach, what I think will happen is we will be able to merge systems. The way you were able to create a ticket using your own language to ask an audience to your analysts in the past, you will be able to ask a marketing technology to create that audience for you. You won't have to understand the data anymore. And I think this is one of the most exciting things for me. Is it's not ready today, but it's certainly where things are going.
Awesome. Well, we got the future told with Florian. Well, hey, we're coming up on time here. The last question I have for you is, where can people find you and ActionIQ?
Yeah, you'll find me on LinkedIn. I post on ActionIQ's blog post. So you'll find me there, actioniq.com. And I'm also publishing on other places. So you can feel free to find me. One of my Substack is called Foreign Key. So same. Any of those places, you can feel free to ping me.
Awesome. Well, appreciate the time today. And thanks for coming on Tech Qualified.
Thank you both.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for checking out Tech Qualified. This show is brought to you by New North, a marketing agency that helps turn your small, scrappy marketing team into a growth engine. To find out more about New North or check out more episodes of this show, go to newnorth.com/techqualified.